People ask me all the time, why has nobody ever seen my wife in public? Why no photos together? Why no appearances? Why complete silence? They ask as if it's a mystery, as if something is being hidden, as if invisibility means something is wrong. It doesn't. But the real reason, the actual reason, is more complicated than people realize. Today I'm going to explain it, not to justify, not to defend, but to clarify. Because assumptions are being made that aren't true. And silence, in this case, has created more questions than it's answered. So let me tell you directly why nobody has ever seen my wife in public. The decision to keep my wife private wasn't made after the marriage. It was made before the wedding, before the announcement, before anything became official. Because in my world, visibility is not automatic, it's strategic. Every person who appears publicly serves a purpose. They represent something. They communicate a message. They fulfill a role that requires visibility. My role requires visibility. I am the Crown Prince. My position demands public presence, social media, appearances, engagement. I represent modern Dubai, active, accessible, forward-thinking. That's my function. My wife's function is different. Her role is not representation, it's foundation. She provides stability, continuity, the private structure that supports the public image. And foundations are strongest when they're protected, not displayed. So the decision was made early. She would remain private, not because she's incapable of public life, but because privacy serves the role better than visibility ever could. Here's what Western audiences don't understand. In Middle Eastern royal culture, a woman's privacy is not limitation. It's honor, it's respect, it's protection. Public exposure is not seen as empowerment here. It's seen as unnecessary vulnerability. My wife is royal by birth. She comes from the Al Maktoum family. She's my cousin. She was raised understanding these values. She knows that privacy is dignity. That visibility creates pressure. That public life invites judgment, comparison, criticism, and none of those things serve her role. So keeping her private is not control, it's cultural respect. In this culture, marriage is sacred, family is private, and protecting that privacy is a sign of honoring what matters. This is fundamentally different from Western values, where visibility equals validation, where public presence equals empowerment. Here, it's the opposite. Privacy equals protection, invisibility equals dignity, and that distinction matters. Because judging my wife's absence by Western standards misses the entire point. She's not hidden, she's honored. There's another reason I keep my wife private, one that's more personal. I know what visibility costs. I live it every day, every photo analyzed, every word interpreted, every silence questioned, every appearance compared. I've built tolerance for that. I was raised inside it, trained for it, expected to handle it. But my wife wasn't. She didn't choose this life the way I didn't have a choice. But she also wasn't prepared for it from birth the way I was. So why would I subject her to scrutiny she didn't ask for? Why would I turn her into content, into comparison, into a topic of endless speculation? I wouldn't, and I don't. By keeping her private, I protect her from what I cannot escape: the constant observation, the commentary, the pressure to look, act, speak a certain way at all times. That pressure is exhausting, even when you're trained for it. I don't want that for her. I don't want her children's mother reduced to headlines, to gossip, to analysis by people who will never meet her. So I keep her out of it entirely, not as punishment, as protection. There's also this: my children, Rashid and Sheikha, they didn't choose to be born into this. They didn't ask for visibility. They didn't consent to becoming public figures. And I will protect their childhood for as long as I can. By keeping my wife private, I protect them by extension, because if she were visible, they would become visible. Their faces would be everywhere, their milestones analyzed, their lives turned into content before they're old enough to understand what that means. I've seen what happens to royal children raised in extreme visibility. The pressure breaks some of them. They struggle with identity, with privacy, with the inability to ever be normal. I don't want that for my children. So their mother stays private. And by doing so, they stay private, at least for now. At least while they're young enough to have some innocence left. That protection is worth more than any public appearance ever could be. I need to be honest about something else. My marriage was arranged. That's not a secret, it's tradition. My wife and I are cousins. We were chosen for each other by family, for stability, for continuity, for alliance, not for romance. And that foundation changes what the marriage is. It's respectful, functional, stable, but it's not built on the kind of connection that craves public validation. We don't need to post photos together. We don't need to appear as a couple publicly. We don't need external confirmation that the marriage exists, because the marriage serves a function. And that function doesn't require visibility. It requires privacy. My wife understands this. She entered this marriage knowing what it was, what it wasn't, what would be expected, and what wouldn't. Visibility was never part of the agreement, so her absence is not a problem, it's the plan. And plans, when followed correctly, don't need explanation, they just need execution. People wonder why I don't just explain this publicly, why I let speculation grow, why I allow assumptions to spread. The answer is simple. Explanation invites more questions. Questions invite more speculation. Speculation invites more pressure, and pressure creates exactly what I'm trying to avoid: disruption. By staying silent, I maintain control, control over the narrative, control over what's private and what's public, control over my wife's ability to live without constant scrutiny. Silence is not avoidance, it's strategy. And in my world, strategy always wins over transparency, because transparency, when it comes to personal life, creates vulnerability. And vulnerability in royal life is dangerous, not physically, but politically. So I stay silent, not because I'm hiding something, but because silence protects what matters. Here's what I want people to understand. My wife's invisibility is not a mystery. It's not a scandal. It's not evidence of problems. It's a choice made deliberately to protect her, to honor cultural values, to preserve privacy in a life that has very little of it. She exists. She is my wife. She is the mother of my children. She fulfills her role, but she does it all away from cameras, away from judgment, away from the world that watches my every move. And that is exactly how it should be. Because not everything needs to be seen to be real. Not everything needs to be validated publicly to matter. And not everyone needs to be visible to be valued. My wife's value is not measured by her visibility. It's measured by the stability she provides, the family she nurtures, the role she fulfills quietly, and that role doesn't need an audience. Why has nobody ever seen my wife in public? Because she was never meant to be public. Her role was designed to be private from the beginning. And privacy in my culture is respect, it's protection, it's dignity, it's not hiding, it's honoring. I know this frustrates people. I know people want photos, want confirmation, want proof. But wanting those things doesn't entitle anyone to them. My wife's privacy is not up for negotiation. It's not a mystery to solve, it's a boundary to respect. And I will protect that boundary for as long as I'm able, not because something is wrong, but because something is right. Privacy, in this case, is exactly what it should be: absolute. The world may never see her face, may never hear her voice, may never know her personally, and that's perfectly fine, because her value doesn't depend on public recognition. It depends on the foundation she provides, And that foundation is strongest when it remains exactly where it is, protected, private, unseen. If this clarified things, I'm glad. If it didn't, that's okay too, because I'm not trying to convince anyone. I'm just explaining reality, and reality, whether people accept it or not, remains the same.